First of all, thank you very much for creating a chance to share our paper, which is focused on living home in Poland, and I would like to present work of the team, myself and my two colleagues, Paula Pustułka and Marta Buler from SWPS University. And I'm going to talk about our aims of the paper and our theoretical framework, which is rooted in time, space, and resources in living home. And then I will talk about flying the nest in Poland and talk about data and methods used in our analysis. And we would like to offer you a typology of living home, and we are going to conclude our considerations. So in terms of aims of the paper, we have two aims. The first one is to contribute a qualitative analysis of living home in Poland as an input to the existing comparative and mostly quantitative research. And we also wanted to unpack the process of living home, of moving out, in the narratives of Polish young educated adults. And research into living home represents a major life course and is a fluid process rather than a single event. And first of all, it's important to mention that an intergenerational support, especially in terms of financial resources, plays a crucial role in youth transitions. In the literature, we can find three patterns of living home as transitions made: to live with a partner, to pursue educational or employment opportunities, or to establish independence. And as familial influence is regarded as an extension of the economic basis for a living home, the process of moving out parental home can be a joint enterprise involving the whole family in creation scaffolding for young livers. And the relation between social classes and living parental home is U-shaped, what means that least and most privileged youth having a propensity for earlier transitions due to educational pursuits and lack of resources in parental homes, respectively. And the metaphors of gilded cage and feathered nest illustrate child-centric middle-class families preventing early parenthood and marriage, expecting high educational aspirations from their offspring. Besides the constant significance of capital, today's transitions out of the parental home can be seen through the lens of temporal fluidity. A living home necessitates finding the right time of both parents and offspring seeing the value of moving out. And to address temporality, we bring forward the intensive, extensive tempo. Living home can be, on the one hand, full of multiple changes occur in quick succession, or can be a process wherein shifts happen gradually without causing chaos or adverse effects. And in terms of signs of maturation, we take into account both objective and subjective perspectives. And finally, it is important to mention that current young generations more and more often than in generations in the past experience yo-yo effect in their transitions. For instance, returning parental home after a period of living independent. When it comes to young Poles living parental home, they are they are older than peers from especially northern Europe, and the average age of living home, the parental home in Poland was 27.6 in 2018, and generally men are 2.5 years older than women when they leave parental home. What is also important, people who go to who take university degree, they usually live off financial support from their parents. So it means that physically moving out parental home does not mean mentally living home. This indicates a status of semi-autonomy by reaching residential but not financial independence. And we decided to conduct analysis of two research studies. Both studies are rooted in qualitative longitudinal research. We conducted in-depth interviews in these two projects with people born between 1978 and 1997. The first study was focused on education to domestic and foreign labor market transitions of youth, and the second one was about transition to motherhood across three generations of Poles. And we would like to offer you a typology. This is qualitative research, and we offer a typology of living home. This typology is based on two dimensions. The first one is more objective one. This is the dimension of resources, and we talk about extensive or limited resources. And the second dimension is more subjective and is based about subjectively a pace of living home. Slow pace, what makes transition more static, or fast pace, what makes transition more dynamic. And we proposed 4 types of livers, young livers, and I would like to talk about each of these types. When it comes to the first type, lingerer, this type describes the person who stays close to parents and comes from household with significant resources, especially in terms of housing conditions. And the departure from a family home is quite natural. For instance, to move and to take university degree, especially for people coming from medium-sized or smaller towns. However, even if they live physically from parental home, they still are connected with their parental home, and they are in touch with parents, often meet at least once a week or twice a week, and in case of any difficulties, parents are right there and ready to offer any support. And those people feel ready to move out parental home with a slow tempo, and parental approval is very important element of this of the decision about living home. And this is the quotation illustrating which illustrates the type of lingerer. It was at the beginning of university. I studied in the city where we lived and moved out somewhere mid through during second and third year. This was caused by increasing conflicts with my family, but also happened with their tremendous support. We were no longer able to coexist, so it was like, okay, you should move out, but still parent supported those person in the process of living home. The second type is gymnast. This type describes a person who moves away from a resources-rich parental home and experience a fast pace, and usually the reason for speedy departures is connected are connected with some issues with relations, such as any contest of questions, intergenerational family bonds, and such moving out is a kind of escape from a furthered nest, and as a rebellion against the gilded cage. But finally, still parents participate in any support and offer any support despite conflict. And this is an example of the situation of gymnast. I lived together with my partner of 7 years, and they openly negated that. They said they were not happy, even though it was my apartment and I was graduating university. They said it was unacceptable. It was bizarre because we lived together and we were hiding it. Whenever they were coming for a visit, he was moving out. The parents knew and were appalled, by still they offered some support. And those two types, the previous two types, described people with extensive resources, and now I'm going to talk about people who experience limited resources in the process of living home. And the first type experiences limited resources is a type of protector who grew up in limited financial resources and is unable from some reasons to leave home. And this person experienced slow tempo of departure, which is rooted in a role as a family supporter. So this person supports family, assistance family emotionally, financially, and etc. And this process, the process of living home in case of protector, is not always a happy joint enterprise. We can also observe reverse direction intergenerational solidarity in this case. And this is the example of such situation. I am sort of chained, to put it like that, to this town. This takes from form of my father and now also my grandma. She's 94 years old and had an accident last year. She's now stuck at home. She manages, goes through physical therapy quite quickly, even given her age. She broke her hip. My mom is not around, so I'm alone in this right now. Sometimes I also go visit my father, do his shopping. So this person is responsible for taking care of grandmother and father. And the last type identified in our analysis is the type of runaway, which describes the person who moved out of home with limited capitals and experience fast pace of transition, and transition to adulthood and moving out home is a one-way ticket to a new life. We can also talk about the situation that limited resources, parents, lower capital, which are usually connected with traditional norms, may result in broken bonds. Those people also feel emotional pressures and a cage showing an interplay of parental control with morality. But what is very interesting, in narratives of those people, they usually use the language as they transition into adulthood, they moving out parental home, was was a formative experience or life lesson. And this is the illustration of such situation. After moving out, I had to take out a student's loan. Only lasted from first to the 15th each month. It was about distancing, a necessity to organize everything on my own, getting my life together. While it was really difficult then, today, I think it has a positive effect. I would not call it a success, but some sort of inner drive. I understood I either do it myself or it will not happen. So during an evaluation of this process, it's possible to talk about positive experience, even if those people experience difficulties and challenges in their transition from youth to adulthood, moving out parental home. And to conclude, I would like to summarize our considerations, and this is very important to note, especially during this conference, that absence of resources forge exclusionary inequalities for those with limited parental support. Linger fully fledged emerging adults, so they benefit from parental support during an extended maturation phase, so they can spend more time for looking for own paths, own identity before entering fully adulthood. And they also are ready for yo-yo moves due to intergenerational solidarity, so they feel that they also can offer intergenerational support for their parents in the long term. Gymnasts dynamically abandon gilded cages. Capital facilitates landing on 2 feet in the new housing scenario away from home. However, those people also experience challenges of emotional and economic entanglements upended by headlong transitions. Autonomy is at the core of the narratives of gymnasts and runaways. Lack of resources in case of runaways means that they need to jump head first and forge their own paths through a labyrinth of modern risks. And protectors cannot offload their duties and continue co-resistant with their parents due to overlapping personal, structural and cultural factors. So those people who represent protector case, a protector type, they transit into adulthood with the family baggage created by their parents, what makes very difficult, what makes their transitions into adulthood very, very difficult. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Justyna, for your presentation. Now it's time for comments and questions. Anybody?
I can, if I can start with a comment. I just wanted to say, first of all, that I love this typology of movers, and I think it's very accurate. So congratulations on the results. Very interesting. And what I noticed that you include this element of financial independence, I mean, of economy and finances as a requirement of, no, you did not, sorry. So
Sorry, no. Let's continue.
This is, that would be perhaps my question, if you maybe say a little bit more about to what extent this financial, to what extent actually finances play a role in how soon somebody is going to move out of the family home. Yes, and just you're probably familiar with the term. I don't know, it's a NEET, but this is NEET, not employed, not educated, not in training. There is this term, I think it was coined in the United Kingdom, with reference to those people who tend to stay longer with parents and they don't do anything, and they quite actually, well, not so, I don't want to say happy, but they're not looking for anything to do in particular. So they finish their education, they're not looking for work, they're not doing any training, any additional courses. So they sort of they like they stay with they dependent on the parent, and not because they don't have they not have enough financial resources, but it seems like they lack some other capital or of the feeling of being able to well, of willingness to move out. They're just happy with their families as they not, and it works for them, but not necessary for the parents. Yes? So just wanted to ask if you maybe had this kind of examples, or if you can comment on, if you know it, or what would be the group of these people in Poland who like are not employed, not in education, and still living with the parents. And thank you very much for very interesting presentation.
Thank you.
I was also wondering, to add to Iwona's question, if there is if it's only matter of resources or money, but also if the parental styles related to the self-influency play a role in leaving home early or not, because we know about that helicopter parents who are kind of supporting, not really supporting fast independence of their children, and they are actually not encouraging children to leave home, and other parental styles maybe are more supportive in the personal autonomy or independence, less parental control, and leaving home is more obvious or expected.
Okay, I can also I would also like to suggest a line of research. So I also like the typology. Unfortunately, I don't have the enough background to comment on it. I don't know if there are any additional types, but there is a kind of research which I think might be here. I think it might give you some additional room of analytical development. There is a researcher, Susie Scott, and she started researching the development of asexual identities. And now, I mean, she's having a very interesting intellectual career, but now she's looking at asexual identities which are non-becoming. So people who, so they had this identity, but at some point either they renounced it or something, so the identity doesn't, it's not fulfilled. So do you have some stories of non-becoming regarding this gymnasts or runaways? Because the typology, I think, does, is it always like this, that you start on one way and then so you start as a gymnast, you finish as a gymnast? I think you know where I'm getting at. But I think this line of studies, like non-becoming a certain identity, I think it would be very complementary to your typology.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Justyna, now.
Yeah, okay.
I can answer if, should I answer? I don't know how we should divide, or?
Oh, okay. Hi, Paula.
Yeah, would you like Paula to say something?
I can, because I feel like you have done a great job presenting, so I can try to contribute a little bit. And yeah, thank you for all the wonderful questions. Yeah, so to the first one about capital and financial role, and so Ivana's questions about what the role the money plays in moving out. Then, so first of all, we did kind of started with this U-shaped idea that the people, you know, with the lowest and the highest are going to have the higher propensity to leave for various reasons. But I think we ended up with seeing that the money does not explain everything, hence the second dimension, and that we really need to look at the relationships that those people have to sort of see the dynamic and interplay of how they indeed decide on a certain moment. So in our view, like the money is important, but it's more important for what happens after and whether they can count on the support or not. So when they leave home and when they move out, they often think prospectively about what will happen. But it's not as much as a very straightforward relationship that, oh, if they take away my money, I'm not going to move out, or if they give me money, I will. So it was, I think, the necessity to add this second dimension. Then I really like the comment about the nesting process and those who teenies and whoever stay longer around the household of their parents, because we know that in Poland there are quite a lot of them, and there's like a big phenomenon. So for some reason we did not have that many of those. We had just a couple, but it might come down to how where the research was conducted. So basically we specifically focused less on cities. We had a smaller proportion of people who were from the cities, and we had a smaller proportion of men, which kind of explains that we ended up with fewer people who stayed and around their house living together with their families, with their parents. And we also had, you know, like this bigger proportion of women who pursued education, and they specifically didn't want to be living with their parents despite not having families. I think for the parenting styles, so the question of Justyna, yes, we noticed this, but I think we see that helicopter parenting and this entire child-centric literature, so everything coming from Charlotte Faircloth, and then what Małgorzata Sikocka is researching in Poland. I think we are not there yet with this particular birth cohort. So we're talking about people who are a bit older, so their parents' modes of socialization and their parents' parenting styles are really not that helicoptery, if you know what I mean. So they are talking a lot about wanting their children to be independent. So I think this parenting style comes out more in when they talk about emotions and like the control and the morality and those intergenerational conflicts, and the fact that some people move out because of them. And thank you for the non-becoming. I think we, so Adriana's comment, I think we do see those types as ideal types. So quite clearly, yes, someone can start as one. Let's say they wanted to be a gymnast and move out and live independently. However, the circumstances might have become the way that they've been pushed more into the protector role because the situation and the family demanded it. And we also, I think, see a lot of those changes in the yo-yo transition. So we don't know, like we did the research at a certain point in time, even with the waves, but we don't know if perhaps, you know, there will be a crisis, a divorce, or some sort of family dissolution, or an illness. And then we can, I think, see that also some people from, let's say, one type might be leaning more towards a different type. And I think over time, this is much possible. And I think yo-yo behaviors contribute to that as well.